I still remember that day like it was yesterday. The way the waiter looked at us, the way he refused to serve my family. It wasn't just rude, it was humiliating. Right there in front of everyone in that packed restaurant, he treated us like we didn't belong. My heart was pounding. My mom's eyes filled with tears, and my little brother didn't understand why we had to leave without eating. We had come to celebrate something special, something we had waited for a long time. But all that excitement disappeared in an instant, crushed by the cold words of one man. And the worst part? Nobody stepped in to help us. No apology, just silence and stares. But what he didn't know, what he had no idea about, was that someone was watching. Someone very important. And that black SUV parked just outside the restaurant? It wasn't there by chance. That day changed everything for my family. It taught me about pain and pride, but also about justice and kindness, the kind that comes from the most unexpected places. You'll never guess what happened next. That night was supposed to be a celebration for my mom. For years she worked 2 jobs, barely got any rest, and still managed to keep our family together. She never complained, never asked for much. When she finally got that promotion at work, after all the late nights and sacrifices, we wanted to celebrate. Just us, together, enjoying something nice. My dad, usually quiet, was smiling more than I'd seen in a long time. My little brother, just 10, was bouncing with excitement, talking about the fancy food he wanted to try. We didn't dress up much, just our best clothes, but we were proud. Proud that we made it this far. We had picked that restaurant because it was known for being fancy, a place people only go to on special occasions. We saved for months to afford it. It felt like a dream to walk inside those doors, smelling the rich aroma of food and hearing the soft music playing. I looked around and saw families laughing, couples holding hands, waiters moving gracefully between tables. Everything seemed perfect, until our waiter arrived. Before that moment, none of us could have guessed how quickly things would turn. How a single glance from that man would change the whole night and almost break us. But the worst was still coming. We stepped inside, and for a moment, I felt like we belonged there. The hostess smiled as she led us to our table. Everything seemed normal. But then the waiter came over. At first he looked polite, but when he glanced at our clothes, his smile faded. I saw it in his eyes, a flicker of judgment. It was like we weren't supposed to be there. I caught him whispering something to another waiter, and they exchanged quick looks, barely hiding their amusement. When he finally spoke to us, his tone was cold, almost sharp. "Do you have a reservation?" he asked. "Yes," my dad said, trying to stay calm. "It's under my wife's name." He tapped on his tablet but didn't seem to find anything. "It says here your reservation was cancelled." That didn't make sense. We'd confirmed it just that afternoon. "Maybe there's been a mistake," my mom said politely, trying to explain. But the waiter wasn't listening. He shook his head, his voice raising slightly so other tables could hear. "No reservation, no table." I felt everyone's eyes turn to us. Some whispered, others stared openly. My little brother looked around, confused and scared. We tried to explain again, but the manager appeared and sided with the waiter, barely bothering to check the computer. It was clear they didn't want us there. I could feel my mom's hands trembling. Her face was pale, and she quickly looked down so no one would see the tears forming. My dad clenched his jaw, swallowing hard. My brother started to ask questions, but I just shook my head, telling him it was okay. We had to leave, just like that. No dinner, no celebration. That moment, it crushed something inside all of us. We stood there stunned. The waiter's words hung heavy in the air, louder than the music, louder than the chatter around us. People were staring, whispering. I could feel the weight of their eyes on my family, like we were some kind of problem that needed to be dealt with and dismissed. My mom's face was pale, her hands trembling as she clutched her purse. She looked like she wanted to disappear, like she was trying to hold back tears but failing. My little brother, innocent and confused, looked up at the waiter and asked, "Why won't he let us stay?" The waiter didn't answer him. Instead he smirked and said loud enough for others to hear, "Maybe some people just aren't meant to be here." His voice was dripping with sarcasm, and the pain in my chest felt sharp like a knife. My dad stepped forward, trying to calm the situation. "We have a reservation. Please check again." But the manager shook his head and said, "It's not our problem if you don't have one. You need to leave." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shout, "We belong here just as much as anyone else." but the words caught in my throat. All I could do was stand there watching my family break a little more with every second. My mom's eyes welled up with tears, and finally she turned away, trying to hide her pain from the room full of strangers. My brother tugged at my sleeve, whispering, "I'm hungry." How do you explain to a child why the world can be so cruel? We gathered our things and started walking toward the door, shoulders heavy and hearts heavier. I glanced back once, and I saw the waiter watching us with that same smirk, as if he had won some twisted game. Outside, the cool air hit us like a slap. My mom wiped her eyes quickly, not wanting us to see her cry. My dad was quiet, staring ahead, fists clenched. My brother was still asking questions, but no one had answers. That night, the restaurant didn't just refuse to serve us, it refused to see us. And in that moment, I felt something inside me snap, a mixture of sadness, anger, and disbelief. How could kindness and hope be crushed so easily? But the story wasn't over, far from it. As we stepped out into the night, still shaken and trying to hold ourselves together, I noticed a sleek black SUV parked just outside the restaurant. It caught my attention because it seemed out of place, too polished, too quiet. Then I heard someone call my name. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but the voice came again, soft but clear, from inside the SUV. I turned slowly, and a man stepped out. He looked familiar, but different, cleaner, more confident, wearing a suit that told me he belonged somewhere very important. For a moment, I couldn't believe it. Could this really be the same person I had met months ago, when he was struggling, barely getting by? Someone I had helped without knowing where it would lead. He smiled gently and said, "I saw everything from here, and I'm sorry." My heart raced. Why was he here? What did he want? I looked back at my family, still hurting, still unsure what would happen next, and suddenly, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things were about to change. The night wasn't over yet. The man standing before us was someone I never expected to see again. Months ago, when life was at one of its lowest points, I had met him without knowing his story. I remember the day clearly. I was walking home after a long day when I saw him sitting on the sidewalk, shivering in the cold. His clothes were torn, and his face was tired and worn. Most people just walked by, but something made me stop. I went to a nearby cafe, bought him a warm meal, and sat down beside him. We talked for a while. He told me little about himself, just that life had been hard, that he'd lost nearly everything. But what stayed with me was the kindness in his eyes, even through all the pain. After that day, I never saw him again. I wondered where life would take him, hoping he found some light. And now here he was, the same man, but completely changed, clean-shaven, dressed in a sharp suit, confident in a way that told me he had fought hard to get where he was. He introduced himself as James. He said he had spent those months working his way back up, studying, working, building a new life. He told me he'd recently bought the restaurant chain I had just been thrown out of. I was stunned. The very place that had hurt my family was now his. He said he had been in the black SUV, watching everything unfold through the window, waiting to see how we would react. And now he wanted to make things right. I looked at my family, still quiet, still hurting, and then back at James. I couldn't believe how much had changed in just a few months. Sometimes kindness returns in ways you never expect, and sometimes it changes everything. James smiled warmly and said, "I want you and your family to come back inside. Tonight you are my guests." I blinked, unsure if I had heard right. The same man who had watched us get rejected was now inviting us back. My heart raced. He stepped ahead of us, holding the door open. The staff who had moments ago whispered and stared, suddenly fell silent. James's presence changed everything. He walked straight to the waiter who had refused to serve us. The waiter's confident smirk vanished the moment James spoke. "You're fired. Disrespecting guests isn't tolerated here." The manager, who had ignored our reservation, was called over. "James didn't hold back. This is unacceptable. You owe an apology to this family." Then James turned to us, sincere and kind. "I'm sorry for what you went through. It never should have happened. Your family deserves to be treated with respect, and tonight, I want to make sure you experience that." We were led to a reserved table, away from prying eyes. The menu was thick and full of dishes I had only dreamed of trying. James insisted we order whatever we liked. As the food arrived, my family's smiles returned slowly but surely. My mom's eyes sparkled with tears, not from pain this time, but from joy. My dad relaxed, the tension leaving his shoulders. My little brother laughed, excited to taste everything. Throughout the night, James shared his story, how he'd once been homeless, and how a stranger's kindness had helped him find hope again. He said he never forgot it, and vowed to treat everyone with dignity. His kindness was real, and it was healing. That night, the roles had flipped. The man who once ignored our pain became the one who wiped it away. And we learned something powerful. Sometimes people change. Sometimes justice arrives when you least expect it. The rest of the evening felt like a dream. The rude waiter was gone, replaced by staff who treated us like honored guests. The manager who had ignored us now watched quietly. No words to say. James stayed close, making sure everything was perfect. He talked about how no one should ever feel invisible or unworthy, especially not in a place meant to celebrate people's joys. As we ate, the weight that had been crushing my family slowly lifted. My mom laughed softly for the first time that night. My dad relaxed, leaning back in his chair without worry. My little brother kept trying new dishes and telling me which one was his favorite. James told us he had bought the restaurant chain to change things from the inside. No one should be treated the way you were, he said firmly. Kindness isn't just a choice, it's a responsibility. Hearing those words, I realized how much this night had changed us, not just because we got to eat, but because someone believed in us enough to stand up for what was right. By the end of the night, I felt proud. Proud of my family for holding their heads high. Proud that I had shown kindness to someone who never forgot it. Proud that sometimes, good things come when you least expect them. That night, as we finally stepped away from the glowing lights of the restaurant and the buzz of the city around us, I realized something deeper. The black SUV parked outside. It was never just a car. It wasn't merely a quiet, expensive vehicle waiting by the curb. To me, it became a symbol of hope, of unexpected kindness, and of how the world, even when it feels cold and unfair, has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. That vehicle, sleek and dark against the night, held the power to change everything. It was a reminder that sometimes, justice isn't about punishment or revenge, it's about respect, it's about kindness, and the chance to begin again, to rewrite the story you thought was already written. And that thought warmed me more than the meal we'd shared, or the apology we'd finally received. Walking away from that place, I glanced at my family, really looked at them for the first time that night. My mom's face, once drawn and tired from the humiliation we'd just faced, now carried a soft, quiet smile. It wasn't loud or flashy. It was a small smile, the kind that whispers, "We made it through, we survived." And in her eyes, I saw something I hadn't seen for a long time, a calm strength, like she'd just been handed back a piece of her pride and dignity. My dad, who had been stoic all evening, reached out and gently held my little brother's hand. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. It said, "We're together, we're okay." There was a quiet pride in his eyes, not the kind that shouts or demands attention, but the steady kind that says, "We're humble, but we're unbreakable." And my little brother, who had been scared and confused earlier, suddenly looked up with a big grin and asked, "When can we come back here again?" Hearing that made my heart swell. That innocent excitement, that hope for the future, was the best gift of all. It told me that despite everything, despite the harsh words and the cold rejection, we still believed in good things. We still believed in better days. That night, I learned something important, something I don't think I fully understood before. I learned that kindness matters. Even the smallest acts, like the one I did when I gave James food that day months ago, can ripple through life and come back when you need them most. Kindness doesn't always feel powerful in the moment. Sometimes it feels invisible, like a quiet whisper lost in a noisy world. But it's never wasted. Helping a stranger, showing a little compassion, can change lives, not just theirs, but yours too. It reminds me that we are all connected in ways we don't always see. And when we treat others with respect and dignity, even when the world doesn't, we plant seeds of hope that can grow into something incredible. That night reminded me that no matter how hard life gets, no matter how many times you're knocked down or looked down upon, every person deserves to be treated with respect. Everyone deserves kindness. Everyone deserves a second chance. Sometimes, the world can be cruel and unforgiving. Sometimes, it feels like the bad things happen again and again, and you wonder if it will ever get better. But then sometimes, it surprises you. It surprises you with moments of hope, with acts of courage, with people who choose to do what's right, even when it's hard. James was one of those people. He reminded me that people can change, that someone who once had nothing can rise up, not just for themselves, but to lift others too. That justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about opening doors that were once slammed shut. As we walked away that night, I held on to that thought like a lifeline. That black SUV wasn't just a vehicle, it was a symbol, a reminder that even when things seem impossible, kindness and justice can still find a way. And that's the kind of hope I want to hold on to. The kind of hope I want to share with everyone who feels forgotten, hurt, or alone. Because no matter what, kindness will always find its way back. It always finds a way. And sometimes, it shows up in the most unexpected places, like a black SUV, waiting quietly outside a restaurant, ready to change a family's life forever. I'll never forget that day. The waiter who refused to serve us didn't know who was watching. He didn't know that kindness had its own power, a power that could change his life too. Because in the end, what we give comes back to us, often when we least expect it. If this story touched you, please like, comment your thoughts, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness always finds its way back. Don't forget to subscribe for more true and inspiring stories like this one.